Hi Psych2Go fam, welcome back.
Well, I guess it's time for a response video because there are other YouTube channels, even some big ones, that deal with the topic of psychology. Psych2Go is an excellent channel from what I can tell. It's a big channel. They've recently posted a video on 6 signs that you have what they call a wounded inner child. And while I think it's an excellent video and it's some good information, I do have a couple of thoughts. Hi out there, this is Dr. Brett Pearce, child psychologist, coming at you with another video. This time we're going to do something a little different. We're going to do a response video, and I'll post a link to the video down below, but it's from the YouTube channel Psych2Go, and it looks like this channel tends to post short, very nice videos on different topics of psychology with the kind of like modern sort of 6 thises or 7 that's, and I've done a few kind of list videos, but this video is about 6 signs that you have a wounded inner child. And after reviewing the video, the 6 signs seem perfectly fine, but I've got a couple of really important comments that I'd like to make, a couple important points I would like to bring up about thinking about things in those terms, which is to say having a wounded inner child. So let's dive right in. So, my concerns about thinking of things in terms of having a wounded inner child are as follows. So, you know, I'm a child psychologist, and so I think a lot about kids and how they're doing emotionally and behaviorally, obviously. I also think a lot about appropriate parenting methods, appropriate ways of relating with kids for us adults. And this video goes into a lot of detail about not so helpful ways that parents can respond to kids that can result in helping encourage an unhealthy relationship with pain for that kid. The first big point that I want to bring up is that no matter what, like if we want to argue about whether or not you have a wounded inner child, what you really have going on is not a wounded inner child. You have a wounded you. You don't have an inner child. It's a bit of an imaginary concept, and it has its uses. You know, like it's very good to kind of think about, okay, so what seem to be the origins of this particular problem for me? For example, the video brings up that a sign of having a wounded child is that you fear abandonment. Another sign, for example, is that you get angry very easily. Both of those things can certainly indicate that you're experiencing a sort of imbalance and that maybe you have some healing and growing to do. It's probably true for many people out there, and certainly can be more so true if you've experienced you know, maybe what we might call toxic parenting or not so helpful parenting. But I think the reason that I'm concerned about wanting to say, yeah, I need to think about my inner child and I need to help my inner child, is that it runs the risk of us trying to do emotional work too much kind of up in our minds and up in our imaginations. And it reaches towards thinking too much. Like, let's come up with this metaphor, let's talk about this inner child. And instead, where you're gonna find a lot of answers to this kind of stuff is a lot more here and now. You're going to feel this stuff play out, and with some work, you can access this kind of pain right away, and you can work on healing it. Now, where I don't mind the idea of talking about things like this as a wounded inner child is that thinking about what's healthy for kids, or what's helpful for kids, if there's, you know, if you had a kid who is obviously in emotional pain, can be a good sort of roadmap for you when it comes to how to have a better and more healthy relationship with pain. So for example, if you dealt with a part of you that feels a lot of shame about yourself a lot of the time, like you feel bad about yourself, often that can come up for people when they assert themselves or when they insist upon getting a fair deal in a situation, things like that. Some people can experience a lot of shame. Sure, very often you can trace that back to being shamed for similar things when they were kids. Regardless, though, what we want to think about is like, how would you approach this feeling if you were dealing with a kid who is in a lot of pain? You certainly wouldn't try to dismiss it. You certainly wouldn't try to run away from it. You certainly wouldn't try to pretend the kid's not there, or try to encourage the kid to pretend that, he's not in pain or she's not in pain. You also wouldn't punish the kid for being ashamed. Hopefully that's pretty obvious. You can't, often shame gets activated and entrenched and engendered by punishment. Same with fear, frankly. Same with anger. You wouldn't scream at a kid who's in pain. What you would do, it's not that you would have all the answers, but what you would do is try to connect with the kid. You try to show an openness and presence. You would try to take the lead with the kid in kind of a bigger and kinder and wiser way. And you would kind of trust that doing so would eventually kind of help the kid feel better and help the kid start to develop more awareness and kind of clarity, I guess, or wisdom. I sometimes like to call it calibration with these painful feelings, which are a part of life, right? It's a normal part of the human experience to feel pain. So this is my first big comment. Be careful about wanting to think too much about an inner child, because what we end up doing then is we just sort of talk about this in this metaphoric sense, and that can be a great starting point, but it basically short circuits, because you're not going to out talk or out metaphor or out think painful feelings. That's not how it works. Try as you might, but you more have to sort of, and it's not outdoing anything. It's more about just kind of opening oneself to feeling and connecting and showing, frankly, love and openness, because those are the things that tend to be quite healing to folks who experience a lot of painful feelings. So that's one big comment. And I guess the second big comment is coming from a child psychologist. Just these signs are good stuff. I mean, I really appreciate how this channel, Psych2Go, is educating the public on a lot of cool things. I've seen a lot of different videos being posted. Many of them relate with child psychology, like, signs that you experience toxic parenting and things like that. The other caution that I will provide you regarding the wounded child video, and it's not really a criticism, it's more of a caution, is that sometimes with this talking about, adverse childhood experiences thing, it can be very tempting to want to dismiss stuff like that as like, well, I wasn't abused as a kid. Now, there's obviously things that are clearly abuse, and no one's going to argue about that, like being horribly beaten, sexual abuse, things like that, being neglected. Objectively neglected is, we consider it sort of separate from abuse, but, it's adverse. But the truth is, there's a lot of situations that I see out there where it's clear that there's a really toxic relationship between parents and kids, even with people who are, very decent people, but just really struggle with having a healthy and clear way of relating with their own pain and way of relating with their kids' pain that ends up being quite a problem. So don't dismiss this video from this very nice YouTube channel by going, oh, well, I didn't experience any abuse, because there's a substantial chance that you'll see a lot of important things for you to think about in this video, even if you didn't experience what we might call abuse. Because I think that having a difficult time having a healthy relationship with pain is a lot more common to many people than we might think. And so this video points to a lot of those signs, and very often we are taught that unhealthy relationship with pain, not only by our parents, but frankly by our teachers and other adults around. And I don't mean every single one of the adults teaches us that, but I think it's just very common in our culture. And in fact, I'm actually writing a book on the subject right now, and it's sort of a big thing I've been thinking about. So, bottom line is, thank you very much to Psych2Go for producing some really great content. This channel and I have a lot of similar goals, which is to educate the public on mental health, and in my case, I focus pretty much only on kids. If you experience a lot of pain for whatever reason, whether you think it originates in childhood, yes or no, being really metaphoric and thinking about an inner child has its merits, but very often the answer to healing is a lot more immediately accessible than you might think. You know, you often don't have to spend too much time going over the past. So at any rate, thank you. Just a couple thoughts on this wonderful video. Check out the video from Psych2Go in the description. I'll provide a link so you can see more of more of what they're talking about, and it's some good stuff. Just a couple thoughts from me. So thank you for listening. Please feel free to subscribe if you like by hitting a button down below. Otherwise, this is Dr. Brett Pearce signing off. Take care. Bye-bye.